Let's go to some current events. The 2311 Front Row antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. Can you give a quick summary of what that lawsuit is? Like a oversimplified, shortened version, just for non-racing fans like myself.
Yeah, so there's no franchises in NASCAR. When you own a NASCAR team, um, there's nothing that says, "Hey, I'm here forever." Like I bought this and I'm going to be an owner until I sell it. But what NASCAR did do a few years ago, because teams were going out of business and then they would have nothing. Like if they lose their sponsor, because the sponsors is what how a race car goes around the track, right? The team goes to a sponsor, they say, "Can you give me $20 million, please? We're going to put your name on our car, and then we will hire the driver, hire the crew. We will improve our car. We'll make it go fast because of the money you gave us." And if the sponsor goes away and they can't find another one, the team's out of business. They have nothing, right? Like except their old cars, like and their race shop. So teams could, in the past they could pour hundreds of millions of dollars into these operations, and if they go out of business, they're just done. Well, so NASCAR accommodated them by giving what they're called charters, which is a guaranteed entry into every race and a share of the TV money, right? Like a guaranteed slice of the pie. But the charters are coming up for renewal. The new deal starts January 1st of next year. And NASCAR agreed to give the teams more money than they had before, like a bigger slice of the pie, because the teams are like, "Hey, we're still losing money here. Like we appreciate the charters, and it's nice now that they've grown to $40 million, $50 million. The top one is sold for 40 million, but they're worth more than that supposedly." And the teams are like, "Look, if NWSL Women's Soccer League franchises are selling for X amount, we think that having a NASCAR team with pretty good ratings should also be probably worth $100 million per team
Yeah.
or whatever." So they think there's a lot more money to growth. But the problem is NASCAR doesn't want to make the charters permanent. NASCAR is saying, "We'll give you these every 7 years, then we'll renegotiate." And there's nothing to say that, it's guaranteed that this will come back, right? Like they could take them at any time. And so two of the teams, which one is Michael Jordan's team, 2311, and Front Row Motorsports, the other team. This guy owns like tons of like Long John Silver's and Taco Bell franchises. They didn't like the terms. Well, I say none of the teams really like the terms, to be honest. But they felt kind of, they negotiated for 2 years and they finally got to this point. NASCAR said, "This is the deadline." And 13 of the team owners signed it. Well, these other two didn't. And they asked NASCAR for more. They asked them for various, like 7 different things. And NASCAR said, "No, we're not even going to talk about it." So they said, "You know what? We think you're a monopoly because actually we can't race anywhere else. There is no alternative to racing in NASCAR in terms of the stock car series. You guys own the tracks. You own the cars that we have to run. Um, there's no other stock car series that's a competitor, and you're controlling all these terms. So if you're not going to give us what we want, well, we're going to sue you now. We think you're a monopoly." So this is just the beginning of this trial, where they're trying to, get some concessions, and it's probably going to drag out for a couple years. I was in court yesterday. Michael Jordan sitting in the courtroom front row, right? And it's like, man, you're just staring over at Michael Jordan, and he's like leaning intently, like smirking when the defense lawyer from NASCAR is making some points he didn't like. He's just shaking his head, and you're like, man, what a surreal thing. I'm sitting in federal court with Michael Jordan over a NASCAR dispute. How did we get here? How
Yeah.
did we get here? But
Definitely could not have predicted that at the start of your career.
yeah.
So what was the previous split, the with the TV money between NASCAR and the teams, and then what was that latest proposal? Do you know the percentages?
I think it was something about it was a little bit over a third before. Now NASCAR is saying that the teams are going to get about half, but I think the teams are fine with the TV money part of it. But NASCAR is also saying stuff like they want control over the team intellectual property, so that they can, I think, sell that as part of it. So like one thing is that it seems like from the 2311 standpoint is like they're saying, well, wait, the Jordan brand, we don't really want you, NASCAR, to be able to go be able to put Jordan brand on some NASCAR Crocs and sell them or whatever you're going to do. Like that's our intellectual property. Like we don't want to sign that over to you.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, there's a bunch of smaller issues and NASCAR supposedly, and I think the permanent charters too is definitely a huge part of that. I don't want to
Yeah.
gloss over that because they're saying like, listen, how can you ask us to go get other investors from other sports? Like the Josh Harris, the Commanders owner, just invested in Joe Gibbs Racing not that long ago, right? And then that has helped Joe Gibbs Racing prop them up, right? And there's big investors who would be willing to come in and do big things. Hundreds of $1 millions in investment. I don't know. If they knew that the charter value is going to continue to go up and they could sell this as an asset at some point.
Right.
But if it's going to potentially go away and you're going to have this piece of paper that's worth $50 million on December 31st, but $0 on January 1st, just because NASCAR said so, that's not good. And right now, that's actually the case for the teams because NASCAR pulled those offers back from the teams that didn't sign them. Now the teams are saying, we actually do want to sign them just without the clause that says you can't sue us. That's what they're fighting for in court right now. They're asking the judge, can you take out the clause that says you can't sue us for being a monopoly? And can you just remove that and then we'll sign the charter deal? NASCAR is saying, actually, we don't want these guys to be chartered anymore. We don't want to do business with these guys because they've called us names. They've torn the sport down. And we also don't even want you to take out that clause out of the deal. So you're looking at like Michael Jordan has these two teams. Probably they're both worth $50 million each. He's looking at $100 million going to zero if the judge does not agree with this case. So there's pretty high stakes at the moment,
Yeah. So what is NASCAR's reasoning for saying that they won't guarantee the charters for more than 7 years?
They say that because the media rights deal is for 7 years, like with the new deal that they signed with the TV partners, they can't commit to having charters beyond that. They can only commit as long as people commit to them, is what Jim France, the CEO of NASCAR, has told the teams. The teams counter by saying, okay, well, but what about the NBA? What about the NFL? There's deals, there's media rights deals that come up for renewals or new deals all the time. You're not saying you can't be an owner anymore in the sport because we don't know how much money we're going to have. But NASCAR is really adamant that these are not franchises and that these teams do not have a say in how the sport is run. Whereas in the NFL, NBA, whatever, the commissioner works for the owners essentially, right? Like they own the league. So
yeah, no, I mean, it seems like NASCAR should be able to guarantee the concept of having charters with everybody recognizing that they can't guarantee what that dollar amount will represent before negotiating the next media rights deals.